Is this healthy?
No, but it sure is good.
Because of my weight, I don't have cartilage in between my bones and my knee.
You need more milk.
That's osteoporosis doing that.
6:05.
I have such a hard time watching shows like My 600-Pound Life or 1,000-Pound Sisters because the pain of these people is so tangible. I mean, they are literally carrying around the weight of their addiction constantly, which differentiates obesity and overeating from somebody that is a drug addict or an alcoholic or a sex addict or a gambler or whatever, right? They are able to cover it up. They're able to sort of act like they're okay temporarily. They can pass at times. Whereas somebody that is this obese, it's all consuming. They're aware of it and everybody around them is aware of it. And yet these are smart, caring, emotionally intelligent, self-aware people that can't change the behavior. That's why the shows are so popular, is you care about them and you wonder, why can't you stop eating? Obesity is a multifactorial disease, meaning it is caused by several different things. There's a genetic component to it, there's an environmental and social component to it, and there's a behavioral component to it. So first, genetics. Without question, genetics plays an important role. And this has been studied in a lot of different ways. To me, the most compelling is twin studies. What they do is they go look at identical twins that have been adopted into separate families, like across state lines. They don't share any environment at all. And when they go back and they measure the body mass index of these twins, they find that there's a very significant correlation. And what they're showing is something in the genetic makeup of these twins leads them to gain weight and hold weight in a very similar manner. Next, it's really important to acknowledge the significance of social and environmental factors. Like, without question, there is a relationship between somebody's socioeconomic status, proximity to healthy food, access to transportation, level of education. All of these things influence the likelihood of obesity. And you can actually look at a map of the US and just circle areas geographically that don't have the right sort of infrastructure to support a healthy lifestyle, and there is a massive difference in the rate of obesity in those areas, without question. All of those things are important. The genetics, the social, the environmental piece, all of it is important because it helps when we identify those things and acknowledge them, it helps us remove the stigma that comes with obesity, which, by the way, is why I like 1,000-Pound Sisters compared to 600-Pound Life. If you watch 600-Pound Life, I don't think you get near the level of connection with the subject of the show, right? It's just about their obesity, and it looks so gross and over the top that I think it's easy for people to be really judgmental about it. Whereas if you watch 1,000-Pound Sisters, you actually have a relationship with the sisters. You've watched them grow and develop, and you've watched their journey over time. And while their behavior may seem crazy to us, we care about them. We think that they're funny, right? It humanizes it. And I think when we're judging or evaluating somebody's behavior, it's important to have the context. And certainly the genetic piece, the social piece, the environmental piece are all very important. And at the end of the day, obesity is 100% a consequence of behavior. It may not be fair. Some people can burn weight much easier. Some people aren't nearly as hungry. They have access to resources. All of that is true. But your weight is a consequence of the calories that you consume and the calories you burn. So the question is, why is it so hard for people like Tammy and Amy from 1,000-Pound Sisters to change their behavior? Here's how I think about it. Overeating to this extent is without question an addiction, but it looks different in its psychological profile than drug or alcohol abuse in a couple of ways. First, we can look psychologically and say there are certain personality characteristics that lend themselves to addiction, right? Somebody who's less conscientious, somebody who's a little bit impulsive, somebody who's not afraid of risk. Those kind of characteristics can lead you to have an addictive personality. And that's true. Those characteristics are oftentimes found in people that experience obesity and people that suffer with drug and alcohol addiction. With drug and alcohol addiction, we can actually look at personality characteristics and say, hey, this person is likely to enjoy marijuana or likely to enjoy cocaine. There is no profile that matches well with obesity. What we've found is that obesity is more about negative emotions like depression, anxiety, anger, fear, sadness, right? really negative emotions or the lack of positive emotions. And if you watch any of these shows, 600 Pound Life, 1,000 Pound Sisters, what you will find is that these people are all suffering from a great deal of distress. And it's easy to think, oh, well, you feel that way because you're so overweight. But if you actually listen to their stories, you'll find that distress caused the overeating behavior originally. So food acts on the body kind of like a drug, right? It's adaptive for us to eat. So when you eat food, your body releases dopamine as a sort of good job. Your body rewards you for feeding it. But if you're distressed and you have some food and you get that shot of dopamine, you might just go, oh my gosh, maybe I should eat a little bit more and more and more. And that's how it happens. And it's hard when you're totally satiated. It's hard to feel distressed in that moment. And so that's how the addiction sort of starts. And I think it's qualitatively different than someone that's using drugs, right? If you're using drugs, they're illegal. You have to go pursue them. There's an effort that is made. And if you want to stop doing drugs, it's sort of easy to sort of change your life so that you're not interacting with things that would trigger the interest in those drugs, right? So for example, maybe you stop going to bars if you're trying to stop drinking. But if you're addicted to food, if you've created this pattern in your life where food fills you and makes you feel better, well, you still have to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So good luck going to the kitchen and making healthy choices, right? Imagine telling a cocaine addict, go ahead and just have a little bit, just enough to feed your body, but not enough to make you have that major shot of dopamine, right? Almost impossible. So here's the pattern as I see it. You have a kid that experiences some kind of significant trauma, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, some kind of family dysfunction, some kind of event that creates an incredible amount of distress and turmoil in their life. And they don't have the resources to deal with it in a healthy way, right? They don't know what to do with the pain, but they do have breakfast. And when they eat breakfast, they know they feel better. And let me pause there on the breakfast story, because I used to work in an adolescent treatment facility for kids that were coming off of drugs and alcohol. And I was always shocked at how much they ate. I still remember a kid who used to use a lot of meth coming in and eating through an entire box of Lucky Charms and wanting more. Not because he needed more food, but because each bite of that cereal made him feel a little shot of dopamine, just a little bit better. And he was absolutely miserable because he had so much trauma and distress in his life. So imagine you have that kid, right? There's something happening that's horrible in their life, and they have that bowl of cereal and they feel better. And they learn to associate feeling better with food. And it becomes all-consuming. More food, more food, more food, more food, more food. And eventually, not only are they distressed by whatever the life event is that created this, but now they're distressed because they don't look like everybody else. They're bigger than everybody else. They can't move as well as everybody else. They feel more shame, so they eat to feel better, right? And it's like you always hear this, Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, neither was obesity, right? It happens very slowly, and all of a sudden you look in the mirror and you go, oh my God, I'm way overweight. But it's really hard to turn that around, right? You're already middle school or high school, and it's so ingrained that this is how you cope. So you can't stop. You keep eating to make yourself feel better. And while you're eating to make yourself feel better, you're becoming more and more depressed. You're in more and more despair. You have less and less confidence, right? There's this cycle happens, and it's really hard to turn the ship around. You have to eat to live. You can't just go, I'm never going to go into my kitchen again. So the question is, how do you treat it? So I'm going to do another video. I'll link it here, and I'll describe kind of the standard treatment protocols for people that are this overweight or obese. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this, please hit the like button and subscribe.